Hello, my name is Tony. One of the things I noticed about America as a kid growing up in the UK was they had guns and we didn't. In movies, TV shows, anyone and everyone seemed to have a gun or to be able to access one. And this was a source of some appeal to a young mind being fed a steady diet of westerns, war, cop, crime, gangster, horror, action movies. And I developed a bit of gun envy. Why shouldn't you own a gun as a matter of course if you want one? Shouldn't it be a right? Later, growing older, I realised that most of the people I knew you wouldn't trust with a fucking water pistol, let alone a real live firearm. Inherently stupid and irresponsible dicks maybe shouldn't be running around packing heat, especially if they are heavy drinkers with little impulse control even when not guzzling gallons of booze on some interminable bender. And I wondered at my own suitability to own a gun. That did it, folks. Self-awareness made me glad that legislation, political and cultural factors strictly controlled the legal ownership and use of firearms in this country. If I had a gun, something would go wrong, and someone would probably get hurt, most likely me, and that would fuck up my ever-loving day. I'm not going to get bogged down in the gun debate and the Second Amendment of the US Constitution, which seems to be raging on continuously stateside, because while I believe it's fine to hold and express an opinion, you have to respect that it's an American issue for Americans, and it isn't really up to us or any other outsiders to tell them or try and influence what they should do. Democracy and democratic process in and for their own country. So, no self-righteous soapbox rhetoric from me. As if I would, eh? I saw Targets at the Market Hall Cinema on a seemingly makeshift double bill with Martin Scorsese's Boxcar Bertha. The only connection between the two I could fathom was that they were both produced or financed by Roger Corman, but it felt to me like they just happened to be two films the cinema manager had to hand at the time, which suited a one-off Sunday night screening. In more abstract terms, both movies gave big mainstream breaks to two future award-winning directors, Scorsese and Peter Bogdanovich. In 1967, Corman gave Bogdanovich a $130,000 budget and told him he could make any film he liked, just so long as he stayed within budget, and Boris Karloff was in it. Why him? Karloff, it transpired, then aged 80, owed Corman 2 days' work for some contractual reason, with Corman not wanting to let a seriously physically ill veteran actor with just half of one lung operational and crippling rheumatoid arthritis go to waste. Karloff was leveraged in as one thread of two parallel but gradually converging storylines for Targets. And as it happened, it gave him the best role of his long career, next to that of the monster in James Whale's Frankenstein in 1931. A year following Target's 1968 release, Karloff died of pneumonia back in his native England. Plot thread 1 of Targets focuses on Byron Orlock, Boris Karloff. Byron is a veteran star of countless Hollywood horror movies. He's wearied and disillusioned, believing that you can't frighten or shock audiences anymore with traditional horror fantasy because they've become too anesthetized and jaded by real-life horrors and challenges. The world belongs to the young. He feels he's an anachronism, outdated, lost his relevance, and contemplates the reality of retirement. The young director of his latest flick, Sammy Michaels, Peter Bogdanovich himself, who has some genuine affection and respect for the old stager, is instrumental in his decision to make a final guest appearance at the premiere of the film. Plot thread 2 of Targets follows the activities of young Bobby Thompson, Tim O'Kelly. Bobby's a Vietnam vet, gun-obsessive, yet seemingly quiet, polite, respectful and clean-cut all-American insurance agent. However, beneath the amicable surface, he's well off his chump, an all-American psycho. One morning, without warning, he shoots his wife and his mother and a delivery boy, and strolls off to go postal all over the place. With a sack of guns and ammo, Bobby takes up a sniper position on an oil storage tank, positioned beside a busy motorway. He begins to shoot people in passing cars. Disturbed by a worker who comes to investigate, Bobby kills him with a shotgun and legs it, but in the process leaves behind some of his guns and ammo. Fleeing the scene, he makes his way to a drive-in movie theatre where he takes refuge from the police. Bobby climbs onto a rig behind the screen. Through a hole in the canvas, he takes careful aim. After the cars arrive and night falls and the film begins, Bobby starts shooting patrons and staff around the open-air theatre. The sound of his kills, masked by the booming soundtrack, channeled through the in-car speaker hookups. When the audience realise what's happening, panic ensues. With the arrival of Byron at the point where chaos strikes, the scene is set for a confrontation between a physically frail octogenarian actor and a young and mentally disturbed mass murderer. Who's your money on? When I first saw Targets, I thought it was a knockout revolutionary piece of work, and even today it's lost little of its power to shock. It's an uncanny predictor of future events, from a time when such things were far less commonplace. Little did anyone know or imagine that mass shootings were one day going to be so alarmingly profuse, regular, and well, unexceptional. First thing to establish is that you can only get Targets on DVD. The BFI were going to release a Blu-ray version last year, 2022, but cancelled plans to do so. Paramount, who owned the rights, provided them with a substandard master that would have compromised the quality of the production. It's on indefinite pause, and if I were you, I wouldn't be holding my breath. It's not all bad though. The DVD retains that slightly lurid, exploitational, faux documentary look of the original celluloid version, resulting in my thinking that maybe a crisp, pristine print would result in a less authentic, more sanitized product. Cleaning it up might prove counterproductive, impairing the moderate grain of the primary visual aesthetic. What we have is what we have, and I'm okay with that. And the DVD version is visually of quite a high standard. A lot of this is down to Laszlo Kovac's cinematography, which, for the time and budget, was pretty damn sharp. The story was provided by Bogdanovich's then wife, Polly Platt. Samuel Fuller co-wrote the screenplay with Bogdanovich, though declined any payment or screen credit for whatever reason. Bogdanovich named his director character Sammy Michaels because Fuller's middle name was Michael. What you've got here is a low-budget mad sniper on the loose thriller with a lot of violent killing that goes for emotional impact rather than buckets of gore. But what makes it so special? Not just another cheapo exploitation potboiler then? Well, it's more complex than all that for a start. The way the twin narrative threads are handled and integrated is absorbing and attention-grabbing. On first viewing, it's unknown how they're going to synchronize and converge. Bogdanovich deftly flips between the two, and it's no accident that the movie Byron Orlock is promoting is a real Roger Corman flick from 1963, The Terror, which featured Karloff and a young Jack Nicholson. Byron is the embittered face of old-style fictional horror, whilst Bobby represents the new breed, a deranged terrorist dispensing real-life murder and mayhem at random and for no discernible reason. Opposites on a collision course. Whilst Byron's response and solution to dissatisfaction with the modern world is planned retreat from it into retirement, Bobby's is to chaotically attack it and shoot it in the face. He's cold, calculating, robotic, targeting people on a whim, killing them dead. To him, they're just targets, chess pieces as Prince Hazmat the Dumb would perceive and write them off. Critic Roger Ebert, possibly at a loss for something stupid to write that day, surpassed himself, with the theory that it would have been a better film if Karloff and his story arc had been left out of it altogether. Probably comes as no surprise to learn I completely and utterly disagree. The Karloff plot thematic is the whole point, driving home the unavoidable truth that screen horror cannot ever really emulate nor compete with the devastating effects of real-life atrocity. Fiction, though, is sometimes what we need to help see us through. A momentary distraction from it all. Here it forms a fascinating and compelling exploration of and commentary on American mythology and the relationship between the imaginary and the real worlds of violence and paranoia. And it's the Karloff narrative that counterbalances Bobby's inhumanity and bloodlust with conflicting qualities of human kindness, heart and soul. The aging, ailing Karloff is a revelation nearing the end of his career and life, giving his best and possibly definitive performance, literally playing himself. His relationship with the young director Sammy and his personal aide Jenny, gorgeous Nancy Sue, is sensitively and warmly handled by Bogdanovich. Whether getting drunk with Sammy, waking up on the same bed with joint hangovers, or expressing paternal concern and affection for Jenny, there is a pervasive poignancy which is integral in providing an emotional contrast to the abysmal bleakness of Bobby's shocking activities. Karloff's grouchiness doesn't mask, negate, or compromise his basic decency. An added bonus is when Byron elects to tell a scary story to a radio show host. Karloff invests with quiet thespian aplomb, rapping through what was understood to be a 100-second single-take monologue of W. Somerset Maugham's retelling of the Babylonian fable Appointment in Samara. The moral of that story simply being you can't escape or cheat death. It foreshadows Byron's own appointment with death in the warped all-American guise of Bobby Thompson. It may also be Karloff's finest screen moment. The finale is a legendary classic of thriller cinema, and Bogdanovich stages it just right. At the drive-in, Jenny is shot and wounded. Incensed and driven by rage, Byron walks towards the screen whilst the movie plays. He confronts Bobby, who is perplexed and puzzled to see a three-dimensional, real-world Byron Orlock slowly approaching him whilst the movie image simultaneously towers above. Fearful, confused, disorientated, it allows Byron the chance to smack the pistol aside with his cane and bitch-slap him to the ground. As Byron stands over him and Bobby cowers, the old actor regards him and remarks,
"That's what I was afraid of."
The last chilling and resonant words, however, belong to the unrepentant mass shooter.
Hardly ever missed it.
He boasts with proud satisfaction as the police lead him away. Targets was a bold and brave directorial debut for Bogdanovich, the springboard that launched him into a future body of work including The Last Picture Show, What's Up Doc, Paper Moon and Saint Jack. Far as I'm concerned, it's the best thing he ever did. That's not going to be a commonly held view, I know, but so what? It remains my favourite film of his. It's a near-perfect coalition of old-school horror movie symbolism with a contemporary late 60s thriller dynamic. You won't find much better. In addition to that, it enshrines for all time my most admired Boris Karloff screen performance, nipping ahead of his evil and insidious turn as John Gray in 1945's The Body Snatcher and the aforementioned Frankenstein's monster in the original movie and sequel Bride of Frankenstein. Targets is dead on. It made the monsters seem frighteningly real. Who knew that all too soon they would be? Thank you again for your time and attention. If I might impress upon you further, could you find the time to hit like, didn't like, grace me with a comment or a subscription to the channel? If not, no matter. I can always have a word with a friend of mine from Samara. See if we can work something out. Ciao for now.